Now, I want to bring into the conversation our colleague Alistair Dawber, Times Washington correspondent, on the line, I think, from DC. Hello to you, Alistair.
Hi, John.
Hi, good to have you here. Let's just a listen back on some of the highlights of the day. Donald Trump's thoughts on what he might or might not do next.
You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death, you could have done fine. You would have had a country.
Right, so Donald Trump, they're keeping everyone guessing. And there's maybe a certain amount of sense to that, Alistair. But you also wonder, I mean, what if they know there in the Oval Office what they want to do next? Because there have been some pretty sharp divisions of opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that clip you just played there from Donald Trump, I mean, that clears it up, doesn't it? I mean, we're probably no further than we were 48 hours ago. There are divisions, not just within the Republican Party, but also within the upper echelons of the administration as well. There are those that just do not feel that America should be involved in a foreign war again. They point out there's this clash of intelligence, if you like, between what the Israelis say, the Iranians were very close to getting a bomb, and what the American intelligence community says, which is that they weren't. And that's obviously got echoes of 2003 in Iraq and going into a Middle Eastern country under false pretenses. We don't know what Donald Trump's going to do. He's got two, I think, in a very broad sense, two options. One is to bomb some of the sites, the nuclear sites that are buried deep beneath these Iranian mountains, not too far from Tehran. And then the other option, which is short of that, would be to join the Israelis in airstrikes on more conventional military targets, on political targets, as the Israelis have been doing. But the Israelis are doing quite a good job of that on their own, it seems. So I'm not quite sure what the value of the Americans joining that campaign would be. We are going to have to get a decision at some point from the White House. This sort of willy-won't-y sort of can't go on for too much longer, and we'll see. We do see some of the military build-up, though. There are going to be 3 strike carrier groups in the Middle East pretty soon. There's only one there at the moment. So there's certainly an idea that the Americans are moving quite a lot of military kit to the Middle East, yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean that strikes will follow. Yeah,
I mean, look, I'm no military expert, as I said earlier on, Alistair, but look, what three you say military strike carrier groups? That's a lot of firepower. Does it seem like enough from what you see and pick up there that would be enough to do whatever America wanted to do?
Oh yeah, look, I mean, I think we mentioned a little bit before about Diego Garcia, the B-2 bombers, the bombers that carry these huge bunker-busting 30,000-pound bombs are within range of the targets in Iran. The more conventional warplanes, the F-18s, the F-16s, the F-35s, they're on these carrier groups and are ready to go. I mean, the US has already got a huge military presence in the Middle East, so the firepower's not there. Whether this is just a show of force to the Iranians and an indication that you need to stop, you need to sort of get around the negotiating table. Maybe that's it. But again, the Israelis at the moment don't seem to want to stop, and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight. What the Americans do, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and look, by what Donald Trump had to say about this time yesterday, I mean, just stopping attacking Israel probably wouldn't cut it. If he wants a unconditional surrender, we don't know quite what that means, but whatever else it means, it must mean, look, our nuclear program is over, and we want to show you that it's over.
Yeah, I wondered about that. No one in the West wants Iran to get nuclear weapons. So
no one's saying anywhere.
No one saying anywhere wants that. It's a kind of medieval tyrannical state, deeply oppressive. So if you have these nuclear bunkers buried deep under the ground and say the US goes in with Israel, takes them out, I mean, would that be that controversial if you are just talking about a few precision strikes, in, out, get the job done? I mean, I don't know how controversial that might be among some of Trump's base, but if it's that targeted and finite, people can live with that, can't they?
Yeah. What do you reckon, Alistair? Would there be such a thing as a clean, clear win?
Well, I think that's the problem. These weapons are very effective. The Americans are the only ones that have got them. But Whether it will be a 100% success, I think it's doubtful. I mean, I think you'd then have to send in some sort of ground force to assess how much damage had been done and whether these facilities like Fordo have been put beyond use forever. So I don't think it's quite as clean as you send the bombs in, the thing blows up, and the whole thing's over and we can go home. I think there's a sort of a more sort of technical, longer term analysis involved, which of course would involve I think some sort of boots on the ground. The other issue that a lot of people here are pointing out is, well, you destroy the nuclear facility. People get very much encouraged in Iran. They topple the regime, and you have a vacuum in Iran like you had in Iraq and like you had in Afghanistan. And what does the West do then with some 90 million people suddenly shed of a tyrannical regime?
Yeah.
It's another fear that the West, principally the States, but other countries as well, could get dragged in and have to sort of do some sort of nation building, something that the Americans have got not a wonderful track record on.
Yeah, I mean, on boots on the ground, I think I read this morning, I think it was in the New York Times, some of the scenarios that were being gamed out in quite a long piece of work in that paper. One option that was discussed, it's reported, was boots on the ground, but Israeli boots on the ground, going in and doing what you suggest there, Alistair, checking out what's the state of things at the Fordo deep underground nuclear facility. And it was mentioned that might involve the use of American helicopters to transport troops in and do the overwatch and all that sort of thing. But that option was said to have been dismissed.
Right.
Anyway, Mikey, what are you thinking?
No, I was just going to mention the idea of Donald Trump contradicting his own country's national intelligence community over the existence of, whether Iran was even trying to get a nuclear weapon. I'm wondering, Alistair, whether you think this was something where he'd actually got new information, or whether it was simply a case of, as we've been talking about before, his opinions being very seriously led by the last person he spoke to.
Well, at the risk of upsetting the listener who was concerned about us speculating, I couldn't say. I mean, certainly in March, when Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence here, went before Congress, she said that the Iranians were not trying to build a bomb, and that was the considered opinion of the US intelligence community. Now, the Israeli intelligence community differs quite markedly from that. And to your point there, Mikey, we know that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are talking at least on a daily basis. The suspicion is that it might be even more regular. And so quite where Donald Trump is taking his analysis from, what's informing his opinion, what's sort of gauging his thoughts on whether or not to strike, who knows? Certainly, Tulsi Gabbard is not at the centre of the Trump operation. She's a bit more peripheral, and she's closer to J.D. Vance than she is to Donald Trump. But where Trump is getting the information that's going to ultimately inform his opinion, it'd be a good story if we knew that. But unfortunately, at the moment, no one's quite sure.
Yeah.